In early February 2025, trade tensions between the United States and Canada escalated after President Donald Trump introduced significant tariffs, citing concerns over illegal immigration and the growing influx of fentanyl into the U.S. Trump imposed a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports, while Canadian energy products were subjected to a lower 10% tariff. These tariffs were set to take effect on February 4th, 2025. In response, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced countermeasures, imposing a 25% duty on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, also scheduled to begin on February 4th. Additionally, Trudeau signaled plans to expand these tariffs to an additional $125 billion in American products following a 21-day public consultation period. The targeted products included American beer, wine, bourbon, fruits, fruit juices, clothing, sports equipment, and household appliances. Following discussions between Trump and Trudeau, both leaders agreed to delay the enforcement of tariffs for 30 days. In exchange, Canada pledged to strengthen its border security by appointing a fentanyl czar and partnering with the U.S. to establish a joint strike force aimed at combating drug trafficking. While some of these measures had been previously proposed, their announcement sparked mixed reactions within Canada. Despite the temporary postponement, concerns persisted regarding the economic consequences of the proposed tariffs. Economists warned that such policies could lead to increased consumer prices, disruptions in supply chains, and strain on the long-standing trade partnership between the U.S. and Canada. Negotiations remained ongoing as both nations worked towards a long-term resolution before the tariffs could be reinstated. Amid these tensions, Canada, particularly Alberta, sought to diversify its oil and liquefied natural gas (LNG) exports beyond the traditional U.S. market. This strategic move was prompted by potential American tariff threats and a desire to tap into the increasing energy demands of Japan and other countries in the Far East. Canada's diversification strategy focused on the significance of Japan as a key market and the challenges and opportunities that came with it. To address these issues, Prime Minister Trudeau convened an economic summit involving business leaders, policy experts, and labor unions to explore ways to reduce Canada's economic reliance on the U.S. The initiative included promoting internal trade and reconsidering previously abandoned energy projects to facilitate international energy exports. Public sentiment shifted significantly, with 90% of Canadians now favoring reduced economic dependence on the U.S., a noticeable increase compared to the period before the tariff disputes. Suncor Energy CEO Rich Kruger stated that his company was well equipped to handle potential U.S. tariffs. Suncor retained approximately 60 to 65% of its production within Canada, utilizing the Trans Mountain Pipeline to transport shipments via the British Columbia coast, which served as a natural hedge compared to other Canadian oil producers relying on U.S. transport routes. Canada's long-standing dependence on the U.S. for oil and gas exports had been a critical component of its energy trade strategy. In 2022, about 97% of Canada's crude oil exports were destined for the U.S., with Alberta being the primary supplier. Similarly, a large portion of Canada's natural gas exports, valued at $22.4 billion, was also directed to the U.S. However, this heavy reliance posed economic risks, particularly as trade tensions continued to escalate. The U.S. had recently hinted at potential tariff increases on Canadian energy products, raising concerns about the long-term stability of this trade relationship. The latest developments underscored the urgent need for Canada to diversify its energy export markets. The prospect of U.S. tariffs on Canadian energy products heightened worries about the trade relationship's future. Diversifying export destinations would enhance Canada's energy security and mitigate its vulnerability to policy shifts in any single country. The Asia-Pacific region, particularly Japan, was experiencing a sharp rise in energy demand. In 2023, Japan imported approximately 66 million tons of LNG, making it the second largest LNG importer globally, following China. Although there had been a decline in Japan's domestic LNG demand due to the increased use of nuclear and renewable energy sources, the growing need for power to support data centers meant that LNG consumption was likely to rise unless renewable and alternative energy solutions, such as hydrogen and ammonia, expanded significantly. Canada's geographical proximity to Asia's west coast positioned it advantageously to meet this increasing demand, particularly as Japan sought to diversify its energy sources. Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, actively fostered energy relations with Japan during a recent visit to Tokyo. She engaged with key stakeholders, including JERA, Japan's largest LNG buyer, which played a crucial role in the country's energy procurement. Schultz toured JERA's Futsu Thermal Power Station and LNG intake facility, where discussions centered on Alberta's potential to supply Japan with natural gas. Representatives from the Japan Gas Association, which includes executives from Tokyo Gas and focuses on gas development and distribution, met with Minister Schultz in a session facilitated by the Energy for a Secure Future delegation to assess Japan's energy needs and Alberta's ability to contribute. Additionally, discussions with the Japan Oil, Gas, and Metals National Corporation, JOGMEC, which ensures stable energy and mineral supplies, explored potential partnerships and investment opportunities in Alberta's energy sector. Canada presented several advantages as an LNG supplier to Japan. One of the primary benefits was the significantly shorter shipping route from Canada's west coast to Japan compared to the U.S. Gulf Coast, reducing both transportation time and costs. For instance, the voyage from Vancouver to Tokyo covered approximately 4,329 nautical miles, and typically took around 11 days. By contrast, shipments from the U.S. Gulf Coast to Asia often required transit through the Panama Canal, adding to both distance and transit fees. Canada's political stability also provided a strategic advantage over other LNG exporting regions, ensuring a reliable supply chain for importers like Japan. Additionally, Canada's commitment to environmental sustainability meant that Canadian LNG was around 40% less carbon-intensive than LNG from the U.S. Gulf Coast, aligning with global efforts to lower emissions. Projects such as LNG Canada highlighted the strong energy collaboration between Canada and Japan. LNG Canada, located in Kitimat, British Columbia, was nearing completion, with exports expected to begin by mid-2025. The project's first phase aimed to produce 14 million tons of LNG annually, with expansion plans for Phase 2 to double this capacity. Notably, Japan's Mitsubishi Corporation held a 15% stake in the project, further emphasizing the close energy partnership between the two nations. To support its strategy of expanding LNG exports, Canada was investing heavily in new infrastructure, particularly in British Columbia, which was emerging as a major hub for LNG production. Several large-scale projects were under development, which, once operational, would significantly enhance Canada's ability to supply energy to Asian markets, including Japan and other Far East nations. Among these projects, LNG Canada was the most substantial energy investment in Canadian history, with an estimated total cost of $40 billion. The project was a joint venture involving major energy corporations, including Shell, Petronas, PetroChina, Mitsubishi Corporation, and Korea Gas Corporation. Once operational, the facility would process and export LNG derived from natural gas extracted from the Montney Formation near Dawson Creek, British Columbia. Other projects, such as Woodfibre LNG and Cedar LNG, were also progressing. Woodfibre LNG, a smaller-scale facility in Squamish, British Columbia, aimed to minimize greenhouse gas emissions by using electric drive technology. Cedar LNG, an Indigenous-led initiative in Kitimat, sought to establish a 3 million ton per year LNG export facility, leveraging existing infrastructure while providing long-term economic benefits to the Indigenous community. These LNG projects collectively marked a major transformation in Canada's energy export strategy, reinforcing its role as a significant supplier to global markets, particularly in Asia. By 2029, Canada aimed to strengthen its position in the LNG sector, reducing its reliance on the U.S. while securing new opportunities in international trade. Canada's LNG production capacity has the potential to reach approximately 31 million tons per annum, MTPA, with room for further expansion. The strategic positioning of these energy projects along the West Coast provides a competitive advantage, allowing for shorter shipping durations and reduced transportation costs. With Indigenous partnerships, low-emission technologies, and seamless integration with existing infrastructure, Canada remains committed to responsible energy development. As global LNG demand grows, particularly in Asia, these projects will be instrumental in establishing Canada as a reliable and sustainable energy supplier. As of 2023, Japan remains Canada's fourth-largest trade partner, with bilateral merchandise trade amounting to approximately 36.5 billion Canadian dollars. Canada's exports to Japan totaled 15.8 billion Canadian dollars, while imports from Japan were valued at 20.7 billion Canadian dollars. This trade relationship is facilitated by agreements such as the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, which has substantially lowered trade barriers and improved market access between both countries. While Japan primarily imports Canadian natural resources and agricultural commodities, Canada's demand for Japan's manufactured goods, particularly vehicles and machinery, ensures a balanced trade relationship. Both nations continue to explore new opportunities, particularly in the energy sector, where Japan's growing reliance on LNG aligns with Canada's increasing export capacity. Canada plays a vital role in supplying Japan with essential raw materials, energy products, and agricultural commodities. Among the key exports are mineral fuels and oils, including liquefied petroleum gas, coal, and LNG. As a significant consumer of Canadian propane and butane, Japan relies on these fuels for residential heating and industrial applications. Metallurgical coal, a crucial component in steel manufacturing, is another important Canadian export to Japan. Agriculture is another key pillar of trade between the two countries. Canada, being the world's largest exporter of canola, finds Japan to be one of its most significant buyers. Canola seeds and oil are in high demand for Japan's food and biofuel industries. In addition to canola, Canada exports wheat, soybeans, pork, and beef, which are essential for Japan's food security. Due to Canada's stringent quality control measures, its agricultural products have built a strong and trusted reputation in the Japanese market. Beyond raw materials and food products, Canadian minerals such as copper, nickel, and iron ores are crucial for Japan's high-tech manufacturing sector, particularly in the production of electronics and automobiles. Additionally, pharmaceuticals and forestry products make up a substantial portion of Canada's exports to Japan, reinforcing the diversity of trade between the two nations. While Canada is a significant provider of raw materials, Japan excels in exporting advanced manufactured goods. One of Japan's leading export categories to Canada is automobiles and automotive components. Major Japanese automakers, including Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, have a strong foothold in the Canadian market, exporting vehicles while also manufacturing them within Canada. In addition to automobiles, Japan exports a substantial volume of industrial machinery and electronic equipment. Canada imports a variety of precision machinery utilized in industries such as manufacturing, construction, and scientific research. Japanese high-tech medical devices and scientific instruments are also in high demand, demonstrating Canada's reliance on advanced Japanese technology in healthcare and research fields. Consumer electronics, including semiconductors and optical devices, further bolster Japan's export presence in Canada as the reliability and high quality of Japanese technology maintain strong demand across various sectors. Canada and Japan's diplomatic relationship dates back to the early 20th century when both nations sought to expand their international trade networks. During this period, trade in goods such as timber, fish, and manufactured products laid the foundation for their economic ties. Additionally, Japanese immigration to Canada began in this era, adding to the country's cultural diversity. However, early immigrants often faced challenges related to integration and discrimination. A significant milestone in their relationship was the formal establishment of diplomatic ties. While sources differ on the exact dates of early diplomatic recognition, both countries moved toward closer political engagement by the mid-20th century, setting the stage for deeper cooperation. World War II had a profound impact on relations between Canada and Japan. As a member of the Allied forces, Canada found itself in direct conflict with Japan, and the war left lasting scars on bilateral relations. One of the most controversial and painful chapters was the internment of Japanese Canadians, where thousands were forcibly relocated, detained, and had their properties confiscated under national security concerns. This historical event has influenced subsequent reconciliation efforts in the decades that followed. Following the war, both countries took steps to rebuild trust and establish a new foundation for collaboration. Canada's successive governments have acknowledged the injustices suffered by Japanese Canadians, issuing formal apologies and implementing compensation programs starting in the late 1980s. Meanwhile, Japan embarked on economic reconstruction and democratization, paving the way for a renewed partnership centered on mutual growth and economic cooperation. The post-war decades saw a significant strengthening of economic ties between the two nations. Japan's rapid industrial and technological advancements created opportunities for Canadian exports, particularly in natural resources and energy. According to Global Affairs Canada, trade between the two countries has seen steady growth, with total merchandise trade valued at approximately 19.1 billion Canadian dollars in 2021. That year, Canada's exports to Japan were about 8.1 billion Canadian dollars, while imports from Japan totaled approximately 11 billion Canadian dollars. Japanese direct investment in Canada has also been substantial, In 2021, Japanese companies invested approximately 1.4 billion Canadian dollars in various industries, including automotive, technology, and energy. At the same time, Canadian direct investment in Japan reached around 0.8 billion Canadian dollars, reflecting growing confidence in the economic relationship from both sides. Cultural and educational exchanges have evolved alongside economic ties. Today, there are an estimated 50,000 Canadians of Japanese descent, and numerous academic, artistic, and tourism initiatives have strengthened bilateral understanding. In 2019, over 300,000 Canadians visited Japan, drawn by cultural festivals, academic programs, and business engagements. In recent years, bilateral trade has continued to expand, increasing by an average of 3 to 5% annually. By 2022, the trade volume between Canada and Japan was estimated to be around 20 billion Canadian dollars. Japanese companies have a notable presence in Canada's automotive, energy, and technology industries, while Canada remains a crucial supplier of natural resources and agricultural products to Japan. Both countries have also invested in joint projects in sectors such as clean energy, biotechnology, and information technology. These collaborative efforts not only drive economic growth, but also contribute to tackling global challenges such as climate change and cybersecurity threats. On the international stage, Canada and Japan frequently work together in multilateral organizations such as the United Nations, the G7, and the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC. Their shared commitment to democracy, human rights, and sustainable development continues to strengthen their diplomatic partnership. High-level visits and regular bilateral discussions help address emerging challenges, ranging from supply chain resilience to regional security concerns. That concludes this discussion. Thank you for watching this video. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you found this content insightful or inspiring, please consider showing your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Your engagement helps us continue to create meaningful content for our community.